our main speaker for today, Angie D from Blythe.
I'm Angie, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Angie.
I'm glad they didn't introduce last year's speaker. Also, it's Saturday morning, and I'm trying to decide whether to give you my Sunday morning spiritual talk or my Friday night raunchy talk or my Saturday night wore-out talk. And actually, I've been a little blank. It's difficult for me to talk in the morning in a dress and shoes because I'm usually like mock kettle. I live in Blythe, and you know where Blythe is. It's over there where God sends you when He punishes you for asking for specifics. And what I'm doing in Blythe is that some of us will go to any length to be married. And there's this blue-eyed, gray-headed guy over there that thinks I'm the greatest thing that's ever happened to him. And he's in Blythe, and he was a farmer. So he didn't get much exposure to crazy women. So I've got him convinced that I'm just wonderful. And so we're both dedicated to making me happy. And he never had it so good. Literally. He really has gotten the best of me, because I'm today the best me I've ever been, because I'm proud of what you've made of me. I feel very, very loved here this morning. I feel loved in Alcoholics Anonymous, but better than that is I feel a lot of love for you. Some of my dearest friends are in this room this morning, and it's always good for me to come out of the farm and be with you once again and feel a little bit like a human being instead of a farmer's wife. There's a new, before I forget, I want to tell you that there's 2 additions to my family, and they're baby geese. And you can't go around barefooted in the yard, but they think I'm their mother. And they just love me. They'll come and eat out of my hand and all that. And this is really great. It's those things that make me happy today. I'm here to tell you I really identify with Bobby, and that everything that I've ever wanted and yearned in my life is in my life today. And you know, when I'd hear jackasses like that say that when I was new, I'd think, bullshit, sure, they got the Cadillac and all that money, because to me that's what represented happiness. If I had had enough things and enough love to fulfill the emptiness inside of me, because I too had an emptiness inside of me. I too always felt unwanted and unloved. I think that's true, though. It's been 2 years since my mother's talked to me. And I told her the first honest feelings that I'd ever had, and I hadn't heard from her since. There isn't that big need. I think that she's used Alcoholics Anonymous finally as an excuse to disown me. I was born into this family that, I was born and raised in Orange County in El Medina. Everybody knows where El Medina is. I know Pepe over there knows where El Medina is. This second time Pepe's heard me this month. The last time was in Spanish. And that was a trip. I was born in this little barrio at a time when we didn't let any Anglos in, and they weren't too anxious to come in there either. Actually, drugs, I think, was what integrated El Medina. Everybody come in and buy and score, and we always had something to sell. I was born into this family that wasn't ready for me then, and I told you they're not ready for me now. They're not too impressed what you've done with me. I always was a big mouth, but now I'm not guilty about it. My dad wanted to name me after his girlfriend, and my mother's narrow-minded. They were divorced when I was 7, and my mother would say things to me like, "You're just like your father," and I knew what her opinion was of him. She didn't like him too well. My mother was of the little purple lips, and I never knew how to be good. I never remembered to be good until after I was bad, and then it's too late because they're always whipping on me. And I'm thinking it's because I don't know how to be good. And so I didn't know I was a better child. If I'd have known I was a better child, then it was them guys' fault. I'd have held it against and thrown it in the face forever. But I just thought it's part of the package for not knowing how to be good. So she'd send me to the nuns so they could teach me to be a lady. She didn't like the Catholic Church either, so she'd send me there. And so they could teach me to be a lady. And you know what the nuns thought was a lady wasn't appealing to me then, and it isn't appealing to me now. In fact, I had to speak one time someplace where there was a Catholic nun on the program, and they wanted me to room with her. Well, I threw a slight fit and sent me out to the last cabin where the bears were. That was all right. And somebody dared me, and I raised the nun's skirt, see what she wore under all them clothes, because not only did I not know how to be good, but as soon as they said, thou shalt not, I may not have thought of doing it before, but as soon as they said, thou shalt not, I couldn't get it out of my mind. It just would. So they kicked me out of catechism. And I got home and got my whipping. That's part of the bargain. But they'd get a shrilly sound. She'd get a shrilly sound in her voice, and it's time to run. And they always ran faster than me. Caught me and brought me back screaming and yelling and beating on me. And, Jesus, I think they'd have thrown my mother in jail 100 times. I screamed louder and carried on louder than what it was. And but the next day when I got to school, all the kids thought I was terrific. God, everybody thought that it was wonderful what I had done, and so I felt kind of like a hero-like type of person. And it seems to me that I was born with an emptiness in my soul, a yearning, a longing, a hunger to be loved, to be wanted, and to be accepted, to fit in someplace. And as a child, I'm always looking for a place to fit in. And I worship my mother. I wanted her approval so desperately. I don't know whether I ever got it or not, you see, because my observation was that no matter what I did, it was never enough, and I was never enough for anything. I had an older sister that seemed to be enough just by breathing in and out, and she was of the good kind. They always told her what to do, and she always did it, and she always did it right, and she screwed it up for me because I was always compared to her and fell far short. I don't know. I guess looking back, don't know what I'd have done with a kid like me. I honestly don't know why I was always getting into trouble. And I'm one that believes that I always had the pilot lit. All I ever needed was a fuel. And what happened is by the time I'm 12 years old, Jesus, I've gotten into so much trouble that I can't think of anything else to do except to hit the road. And my dad was over in the San Fernando Valley, and I figured if I was like him, everything going to be better over there. It was always going to be better over there. I was going to finally be able to get over there and be all right and be complete and feel like a whole person. And what he was is that he used to contract people to come up north. Bakersfield is not my favorite area because this is not just Bakersfield, it's the whole San Joaquin Valley. They made two kinds of Mexicans. It's fruit pickers and non-fruit pickers. And I'm not a fruit picker type, but they try to make a fruit picker out of me up in this area. It's a few miles. It's in Livingston, but we used to go there and pick grapes. You see them long rows of grapevines. And I think mud goes through my veins. I never was fast enough for them guys that they throw rocks at me and shit to get me to move. I'm built for comfort, not speed. But that's the good news and the bad news. And the good news is that we stayed beyond the season with the Gallo brothers, and they gave my dad a case of sherry wine. Somebody must have said, thou shalt not. I had a big water glass of that sherry wine, and when it went down good, it went down good. I mean, it went down marvelous. I mean, I loved it from the beginning. It's too bad that something that good has to be wasted on social drinkers that don't appreciate it. I appreciated it. I mean, I loved everything it did. Everything tingles, you know that? Everything feels good, and anything that wonderful, man, I want more. And then it's the next day. Somehow or another, I always overshot the goal trying to find that in-between area there. And that's the way it was from the first time I drank. It did magic inside of me. But then it's the next day, and something came to live with me that I didn't understand. It's that feeling of being dirty that went all the way inside. The feeling of shame. And not knowing how to recognize those feelings. Only looking back do I recognize what those feelings were. But I knew that it was something bad, that I was a bad person. And I was terrified to know what I had done and terrified not to know. And I don't know what to do with these feelings. I just put walls around me of either a clown or of violence, because that's the only way I ever knew how to handle anything that was so uncomfortable. And that's the way it started with me. And it was shortly after I went back to my mother in Orange County, and she and my stepfather did not want me back. They'd been free of me over a year, and they didn't want me back. And it reinforced that I was not wanted any place. So I started living here and there with friends and friends of my mother, any place, anybody that would take me in at least for a little while. And I became a party girl. I don't know. The Anglos are like Mexicans. I always hung around Mexicans. We always stayed within ourselves where it was reasonably comfortable. But we got parties all weekend. You know, you can get drunk and sober several times. And I always got drunker first than anybody else. And people get disgusted because they'd always have to be taking care of me. And they'd say, why don't you just not get so drunk? Well, I never wanted to get that drunk. And I did things that were embarrassing. And like take my clothes off. I was one of the original topless, bottomless dancers in Orange County, and I don't even get paid for it. I don't even remember it. But the girls always wanted to tell me what I did the next day, so I used to beat them up, and then they didn't tell me, because violence is the way I handle anything like that. Because, you know, I'm of the era where you join the gangs and beat each other up and call it fun. And I did. I was always very popular with the boys, though. The girls didn't like me too well, but the boys always liked to take me behind the bushes or cap a field or something. I don't remember. I also don't know how to take up burglary. I find out it's not very, very feminine. I wasn't really a bad person. It just seemed to be a good idea at the time. If anybody lived over in Lemon Heights in Orange County in the late 40s or early 50s, I'd like to make my amends this morning. I was just having fun. It really was a surprise to me when the state of California discovered me. They didn't understand that my case was different. They took me before a judge who asked me, well, young lady, what do you think we ought to do with you? We said, well, you're the judge. You ought to know. That was the wrong person to have that kind of an attitude with it. Sent me up to do a little bit of time for the state of California. 9 months, because I'm just a child. I'm 17 years old at this time, and I don't know how to be good there either. And so I do 13 months. My whole 18th birthday was spent in college, live-in, at the expense of the state of California. I took my first inventory when I got out of there. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money. Didn't have an education. Didn't have a home. Didn't have this, that, and the other. Just said, Jesus, what an order. I can't go through with it. I better go out and find me a husband. And I went out looking for a husband in places that husbands ought not to be looked for. Unfortunately for both of us, I found one. You know, there's a certain type of man that is very excited. You know, they got them big muscles, and they wear them little T-shirts. They got them tattoos. They walk with a little slouch, and their hair's greased back real nice, and they got a twinkle in their eye and say, what's happening, baby? Oh, God, he just got all of us. I used to think that look in their eyes was charisma. Today I know it to be psychosis. But they're so challenging. You know, there's something like a taming one of those, you know you've accomplished something. Huh? Never mind them wishy-washy guys that go to school or go to work. You know, they're so bland. But these guys are just like wild Mustangs, huh? Well, this guy was one of them. And he was a mainline heroin user, and I'll tell you, that was an exciting life. We either had honeymoon or battle in our house. We either were lovey-dovey or fist fight city. I mean, I got scars on me, but he does too. And 3 months later, we were pregnant, and I was married. He decides he wants me to be a respectable Mexican wife. He had an idea of what a good Mexican wife should be, and I had an idea of what a good Mexican husband should be, and never the twain shall meet. I tell you, and all I ever wanted was somebody to love me and take care of me, somebody to cherish me and treat me as I knew that it could be done. But it wasn't that way. I was a child in a woman's body, and this man was a child in a man's body, and I didn't understand that. I thought that he was going to take care of it for me, that he would change and make everything all right for me. By the time I had my baby, I realized that this man didn't want to be married, and I knew it was because it was something about me that he did not want to change for. So when they put that baby in my arms, I felt like finally, somebody belongs to me. You know that feeling? Somebody belongs to me. I knew that baby was my baby and that she belonged to me. I would hold that baby by the hour. She inspired feelings within me that nobody ever has before or since, because, you see, I worship my baby. If I could have been anybody else, for anybody, it would have been for that baby. I loved her so much. But I am a child in a woman's body, and I'm an alcoholic, and I am a woman alcoholic, and I don't know what is wrong with me. Way down inside of me, there was always that spark of the woman that you brought out, but that you have made whole. But I wasn't there that way then. I thought that there was a monster that lived within me, that something was wrong with me that didn't seem to be wrong with other people. And I took that baby and her sister to places that children should not be taken. Not because I wanted to, but because I am an alcoholic. And when I drink, I have absolutely no choices and no rights. When I drink, I'm going to do what's in front of me to do. I don't know why I do those things. I just do them. I got absolutely no choices and no rights. Anybody can use and abuse me in any way that they want, because I have no defense, not only against drinking, but against life. After the second daughter was born, I left that man, because I knew I was getting so old, and I was going to have a baby every year, like my mother said. I always believed all the crummy stuff she ever said. Didn't ever believe any of the good stuff that she or anybody ever told me. That I would just reinforce that rejection, that feeling of unworthiness. I left that man, and I went out looking for another husband, because I knew I couldn't take care of me and them little girls. But I went and out, fell in love. You know, when I fall in love all over my body. Every inch of me falls in love forever. I can't remember the names of some of the men I've fallen in love with forever. The faces change, it's the feelings that stay the same. Trying to find somebody to love and take care of me. But you see, what happened is that it was the beginning of 5 years of being an unprotected bar-drinking female. I know the feeling of degradation and self-loathing that the woman alcoholic goes through when she's an unprotected bar-drinking female. And I also used to come home many times when there was not enough chemicals to kill what I had, in that cold water shack, that when I would walk in and turn the light on, and the sink would be black with cockroaches, and there was mice on the filthy floor. And today I can't stand those things. You see, they probably bring back those old feelings of revulsion, because there was not enough chemicals inside of me to kill what I would see when I would walk in. And in that shack lived those two little girls that if I couldn't find a babysitter, they stayed by themselves, and they were just babies, really. And they were terrified. They had the big eyes. You see, I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous by myself. I brought two little girls with the big eyes that had the terror in their eyes. They didn't know when I would come to, whether I would start beating on them or I would hug and love on them. And sometimes when I would start hitting and beating on them, I couldn't stop, and I wouldn't wouldn't stop until there was blood and prayers and, "Mommy, Mommy, please don't beat on me." It wasn't very long ago, I guess it was about a year ago this month, that I had a phone call from one of my daughters. My youngest daughter called me from a jail and said, "Mommy, Mommy, please come and get me, please." And I flashed back to those days when she used to kneel in front of me and say, "Mommy, Mommy, please don't beat me." And you see, those feelings, those remembrance and the feelings of those pictures may never leave. But this is part of my gratitude today. I come and share these things with you, not to impress you. For God's sakes, you had to go through your own personal hell. But it took me a long time to be able to forgive myself and let go of those things, so long into sobriety, that I come to share this with you, not only to free me, but to free you. Because I know that there might be somebody out there that knew about the abuse that other people going through because of our disease, and I am convinced today that it is a disease. In those days, I knew there was something horribly wrong with me. I used to think, where I hear women in Alcoholics Anonymous say that they've taken away their children and they're very sad, and I know that they are. But in those days, I used to think, won't somebody please take these little girls and give them some kind of a normal life, because I am a monster with them. And yet I was terrified of letting them go elsewhere. This is the ugly side of my disease. This is the part that even today I cannot laugh about. How could I? After 5 years, I got so tired one more time, and this man got out of the penitentiary, where he wrote me letters that said, "Babes, this time it's going to be different." And again, I'm tired and clutching at straws. And so we made the Mexican geographical. We moved about 30 miles from Mama, over by Riverside, for God's sake, you know. From El Medina to Mira Loma, right next to Norco. I've lived in some strange places that people usually move from. And this place, everything was going to be different. We bought a little ranch with the chickens and the turkeys and the horses, and we were going to be farmers, this Dolphin and I. And I married him in the Catholic Church, and that's going to any length for a Catholic, especially since he was a Methodist. I was going to make this work with this guy no matter what. Even if it killed him, it was going to work. We joined the PTA, and we were going to be just like everybody else. And that life, it was completely different, and it was kind of like them other people lived. But I'm a firm believer you can place me in the best of circumstances, and sooner or later, I have to create whatever is inside of me. And what happened is, when he started making the run to the winery, to the Case Connection, I started making the runs to the winery. My drinking changed at that time. Because you see, before I had been a party girl, and I loved the booze and the boys and the cha-cha-cha. Now I became a bedroom drinker. I couldn't even get out of bed. I would drink around the clock. Something happened where the magic had left the alcohol. No matter what I drank, it wouldn't kill the madness inside of me. And so I drink and I drink and I drink. And my body was drunk and my mind was in agony. And I got to the place that all I wanted to do was die. I saved my sleeping pills and waited until this man was home one day and took all these sleeping pills. And I had a tolerance in me. All I did was sleep for 2 nights and 2 days. When I came to, I was enraged to be alive. I didn't want to live anymore. I was so tired, too tired. I had lived life and everything, and it wasn't worth it. And that day there was a knock on the door, and there was a lady from the PTA. That today, looking back, I realize my higher power has always had his hand upon my life. And in a moment of weakness, I let her in, because I ain't letting anybody in my house. If I'm drunk, I'm beating them up, and if I'm sober, or I don't know what you call it. You just don't drink that morning, and you're goddamn sick. The bennies won't work anymore. And I let her in, and I told her my tale of woe. And I got a tale of woe about this SOB and how he done me wrong after I listened to his lies one more time. Now, I had been in bed, I told you, and I had not made it to the bathroom during that time I was in that coma. And so, I just looked and smelled terrific. In a moment of weakness, I let this lady in. She was from the dairy people. Them are the people that got all this money and get dressed up just to stay at home and somebody else cleans their house. And here I lived in this moo. And so I let her in and I tell her my tale of woe, and she stays with me and she cleans me up and she listens to me, and she somehow along the way, the conversation, she asked me if I ever heard of Al-Anon. And I'd never heard of Al-Anon. But I got the idea that if I went there, he would straighten up. And I always knew if he would straighten up and take care of business and take care of me like he said he would, I wouldn't have to drink so much. And so she cleaned me up and took me to Al-Anon. And somehow I didn't fit in Al-Anon. I felt a little bit like a whorewood in a nunnery. There was absolutely no identification between me and them square broads, and I didn't feel a part of it. I didn't feel like I got home, but I never felt a part of a bunch of women anyway. Someplace along the line, somebody had told me I had a pretty smile. So I knew if I smiled a lot, it kept the heat off. So I just smiled at the Al-Anon ladies. But I remember that they put their arm around me. In defense of Al-Anon, I'd like to tell you that lady only had about 60 or 90 days there, and she just didn't know what else to do with me. She'd found answers there, and that's what she wanted from me, because she knew in what condition I was in. One of the best things that lady ever did for me, besides introducing me to a program, was she introduced me to her doctor. He was the best connection I ever found. He was marvelous. He had all this, he'd open up this closet. It was stacked. So it changed my drinking a little bit more. I took another avenue. That wasn't when I first started taking pills to control my drinking, because that's what it did. Pills control my drinking for a long time. But what it did is I just switched brands. And I don't want to go to Al-Anon. But she comes and takes me. I'm a people pleaser. I don't know how to tell her I don't want to go. One day I heard the word release. It was the greatest news I heard in Al-Anon, because I knew I couldn't divorce him. I'd married him in the Catholic Church. So I went and told him in detail how I was going to release him. And he'd sleep with his clothes on and a knife under the pillow. And I'd put on a big black coat and sit in the corner and watch him. When he'd be dozing off, I'd go take a little peek at him. And he'd look at me, good! He just startled. I loved that. He'd always thought he was such a bad Pachuco type, and here he was scared of me. He would say unkind things to me. He'd say, baby, I may have a monkey on my back, but you got an orangutan. I thought, how dare he say those things about me? I thought he was so bad he made me look good. I always was the one that looked the worst. I was always the one that looked all battered up. Because, you see, I'd always jump him, and he'd say, don't hit me. You don't tell me don't. Well, go ahead, you. And then I'd jump him, and I'd always lose all the fights. He'd say, for God's sake, don't stay down. I never stood down. I'd just come back for more. And I always looked like Frankenstein. Because I'd show him, look what he did to me. His mother always said it was my fault. One day I came home and he was gone, and he took everything with him. He wasn't planning on coming back. And the same Al-Anon lady took me to an AA meeting, and I'm thinking the Al-Anons are trying to get rid of me because they found out about me. I couldn't even give them eye contact. I just looked down when on my way to the AA meeting. And I walked into the young people's meeting in Pomona in August of 1964. And I sat in the back in this dirty, scroungy little old house and listened to the sounds of Alcoholics Anonymous. I listened to that belly laughter, that smile that reaches the soul, that shine in the eyes, and that happy talk. And those are the sounds of Alcoholics Anonymous. The very first thing that attracted me to you was what was happening between you. I had never heard it. It did something for me. It attracted me like electricity. And I didn't know what it was. I just thought, it's too bad I'm not an alcoholic. If there's another name for the disease that you and I have, it's called I ain't got it. Now, I knew I was weird, and I knew I was different and 2 steps ahead of the men with the butterfly nets. I just didn't think that I was an alcoholic. I used to be an alcoholic. When I was a kid, I knew I was an alcoholic. But you see, I had controlled that with Benzedrine and Miltowns. And you don't understand. My case is different. If I really was an alcoholic, I'd tell you. But you see, there are feelings in this room that kept me coming back. I've often wondered, what is it and where does it come from? And it came to me, and I realized that this are just empty rooms. That which happens in here, we bring it with us. And it intermingles and becomes a group conscience, a higher power. You call it whatever you want. But there is a dynamic something that happens when you and I come together. And if you're new like I was, you don't have it. Way down inside of me, there was always that spark that never quite died, that I couldn't kill no matter what I put inside of me. But I knew I didn't have what you had, and I wanted, and I hungered for it, and I longed for it. And newcomer, if you be lucky like me, I let it wash over my soul, and I wanted it. And it programmed out the only thing that I understood. I looked around at all them sober, single, good-looking young guys, and I said, man, I'm going to get me one of those. And I did. It was the sickest one there. He had to be. I had radar. But it takes what it takes. You know, it doesn't matter today. We hear all this stuff and the blue-lipped little old people that says, don't do this and don't do that. Why, heck, I ain't hearing any don'ts, man. I'm getting one of those that's going to take care and fix me. Huh? And nobody ever said you don't belong here. In Pomona, they'd go around the room and everybody gave their name. And when it came to me, I'd say, I'm Angie, and I'm a visitor. Nobody ever said you don't belong here. Somehow you understood I've been kicked in the teeth by life and rejected by everybody I'd come in contact with. And I couldn't stand any more rejection. You put your arm around me and you told me the most important words that you've ever told me, and that you said, keep coming back. God, do you know what that feels like when you're used to people saying, keep on going, weirdo? What a disappointment it was to me when I found out you were telling that to everybody. I thought it was just me you wanted to keep coming back. And I kept coming back for 10 months, and as a visitor, I stopped drinking along the line, and I felt I was being disrespectful to you if I drank. So I quit drinking. Besides, I was scared this guy would leave, this other guy. And I doubled up on the Miltowns and Benzedrine and got weirder, and all of a sudden he discovers I'm Catholic and wants to get rid of me, and I'm not easy to get rid of because I didn't have a backup. Everybody's got to have a backup. So I moved to Pomona to be closer to the action. I mean, I want one of you guys. I knew you I liked you guys. And I didn't like the women too well, but the guys were nice. And so I moved to Pomona to be closer to the action, and I walked into a room one day, and there's this cute little boy talking. He'd just gotten out of the penitentiary himself. He's got big blue eyes and blonde hair, and I have an affinity for blue eyes and blonde hair. It is now blue eyes and gray hair because time marches on, and he's talking, and he's saying he doesn't have a girlfriend, he doesn't have a surfboard, and he doesn't have a car. And I think to myself, come here, little boy, I'll take care of you. And I did. God, and that young man didn't know what hit him. I mean, I hit him like a bomb. He was 21 and I was 32, going on 92. And he'd been locked up on and off for about 4 years, and he was 21, so, you know, I just thought he needed some teaching on all areas of his life. But, you know, after that relationship was over, he decided to become a minister, and I'd like to think that somehow, in my small way, I helped push him over to God. I don't like women, and I don't trust men, and that doesn't leave you much. And I didn't know what I was going through was called withdrawals. I thought that was sobriety. No wonder I never wanted it. I mean, all I ever heard you say is you keep coming back and live happily ever after. And here I kept coming back, got sober, and everything fell apart. I mean, it hit the fan. I didn't know what that was. I couldn't sit, stand, walk, or anything. Every nerve of my body was exposed, had no skin. And I could not predict in half an hour how I was going to feel. And I always went with my feelings. If I felt wonderful, I felt wonderful. If I didn't feel so wonderful, somebody's going to get hurt. It's either you or me, and more likely you. The hurt for me comes later when the remorse and the ugliness sets in. But you see, he was the first man that had ever been kind to me. He was the first man that had ever been gentle with me. I had been raised in a Mexican neighborhood that the only men in my life had been child abusers or womanizers or wife beaters. Those were the only role models that there were in men for me. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous in a room full of Anglo men that taught me about gentleness. God said, let that gentle young man into my life to teach me about gentleness. He was the first man that had ever been kind to me. He was the first man that had ever been proud to be seen with me and not have stayed there forever, because nobody had ever been proud to be seen with me. And I am glad that God sent him into my life, because I believe today that you and I do not come together by accident. I truly believe that we come together by divine appointment. By divine appointment. And I can see it today, but I couldn't see it then. Yet I know that every relationship has its beginning and its parting. But when you go on your way, you take a little bit of me with you, and you leave a little bit of you behind. And we're never the same, because our lives have touched. And that man will always be precious to me. When I see him today, there is still a something between us. It no longer has to do with physical attraction. It has to do with that kinship of the spirit that you and I acquire because we are members of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm so new, and I'm so wild, and I'm so scared. And what I do is I plug into him and latch on with a death grip, and I turn all of me over to him because he is so good to me. And after he got drunk, so did I. And I thought I would never want to drink again. But I just thought that I was a little alcoholic. Nothing as desperate as you guys say, like, you're going to die? Well, shoot, I'm 32 years old. I ain't going to die. I didn't die. I ain't going to die ever. But you see, I died again after I picked up that drink. The fear and the despair had left, and I didn't know it had left until it came back. And I came back to you because one of you named Carson, a man that was considered, that would prey on young new women. I'll tell you, he never preyed on me. The only thing he did me is he brought me back to you. On a rainy Wednesday night in December, the miracle for me is that I did not come to Alcoholics Anonymous, because hundreds and hundreds of us come and don't stay. The miracle for me is that I am still here. I got so desperate, and I came to you and stayed with you, and the miracle for me is that last December the 22nd, I celebrated my 21st birthday. You see, that is the miracle for me. And the victory is not mine. For God's sakes, it belongs to us. I am composed of a little here, and that was the muck of how I had lived and the people around me had lived. You see, if there's anything wonderful about me, and there are a lot of wonderful things about me, it's because you have inspired and brought him out and shared yourself with me. I feel so loved and so wanted in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't feel that way in the beginning. I came back now terrified, absolutely terrified and desperate to have other than what I had there. And I came to you just so scared I couldn't have what you had. And you would read things like rarely have we seen a person fail. And I knew when you said rarely, somebody wasn't going to make it. And then you say there are such unfortunates, they are not at fault, they seem to have been born that way. I thought, man, I'm screwed. I knew I was born that way. My mother will tell you I was born that way. She remembers stuff that I don't ever remember when I was about that high. But a little further on down, they have the God Saver, the God Saver. And since then there are those that have grave emotional and mental disorders. I am so grateful that they have that in there, because that's the catch-all for all of us that think our case is different. You see, I knew that there was something terribly wrong with me. But a little further on down it says, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Now, I'm not presumptuous to tell you that I have the capacity to be honest, because I don't know the difference between right and wrong. I literally don't know the difference between right and wrong, because if I want something bad enough, or to believe something bad enough, I can go home and pray about it and meditate about it and pray about it and meditate about it, and sooner or later God and I will decide it's His will for me. And it ain't nothing to lay it on you. I do know that the essence of my life is my sobriety. Do they have an announcement?
Not now, later.
I won't use any four-letter words, sir. I do know that the essence of my life is my sobriety, under all my character defects, and I have many of them. Many, many, many that have not left. All the ones I don't like, don't leave. The ones I don't care about, leave. And I asked my sponsor, how come they don't leave? And she reassured me that if God removed my all my character defects, that I would disappear. Under all my character defects, there is a longing to do whatever my higher power has spared me to do. Because I know I've been spared. People like me just don't live the kind of life that I live today. I are the kind of people like me that live with that agony, that all I can do is rock myself and not cry, wail with that pain inside of that emptiness, that longing inside of me. See, that's the way people like me live. We don't live like jackasses, hee-hawing all the time and happy to have geese follow us. But the path between then and now has not been easy for me. You see, I never knew how to be sober. All I ever knew is to live in a cold, dark room without any structure, without any guidance, without anything and anybody to depend on. And I couldn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous. And all of a sudden, belief and faith and trust, those things came so slowly and so painfully. And you see, those are the things that I remember when I come up here and share my life with you. Yes, I get nervous. Yes, I get scared. Yes, I get sick. I hear in the sound of my own voice. But I come and share with you again my life with you, because somehow in reliving these things, it reaffirms and renews the gratitude of where my life is today, you see. Now, in the beginning, they all know more than me. Then I know more than some of them. And the day came when I couldn't stand some of you. You know that there are actually members of Alcoholics Anonymous that you can hate? I don't know about resentments. All I know is feeling good and hating. That's all I know. And there was this guy that I hated everything about him. I mean, the way he walked, the way he talked, the way he laughed. I know I hated him, everything about him, because I watched him diligently with my teeth clenched. Now, I'm a newcomer. I'm supposed to go to a meeting every day. But he's been here like 12 and a half years and don't know nothing, because he's going every night to it. And I know he is going, because in Pomona, where I got sober, there was only certain meetings. And if you didn't go to that meeting, you didn't go to a meeting at that time. And I don't know what to do with all those feelings, because I still don't like women. And I don't have a sponsor. One of them had volunteered to be a sponsor, and because I ain't asking any of them broads to be my sponsor. You know, them older ones, they look at you. You know, the ones that I'm not talking about old in age. I'm talking about old in sobriety. They look at you. Them old-timer women look at you. I don't want nobody looking at me, because they look at me, and I knew they could tell something. I don't know what they can tell, but I know they know something when they look at me. So I give them lots of room. And the younger women, well, I got this cute young thing with me. I check them out, and then I said, okay, let's go this way, honey. So I don't have nobody to turn to, but the guys, the men are always so much kinder, always patting you on the head or in the ass. I put my smile on. I go to some of them that look like they knew how they're talking about, and I'd ask, how do you get over resentments? And they'd say, turn it over easy, does it, this too shall pass, one day at a time, go home, read the book, and coming back and don't drink. So I went home and did all this stuff. I come back the next night and check it out, and it didn't work, because I started watching comedies. And I go to somebody else, and again I'd ask, how do you get over resentments? And they say, turn it over easy, does it, this too shall pass, one day at a time, go home, read the book, and coming back and don't drink. After a while, I got the message, you don't know the answer either. I mean, we're in big trouble if the people that got the answer don't know the answer. I don't know what else to do. I don't want you to kick me out of here because I don't do what you tell me. Besides, I didn't give up that young guy like that sponsor told me. She said I got to give him up, or one day he'd give me up. I don't know how to live without a man. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about sex is a price I paid to have somebody hold me close and make that lonely, horrible something go away, at least for a little while. You see, I felt good when I was with you. For the hour and a half that I was with you, I felt wonderful and marvelous because my eyeballs were turned around to you instead of into me. But when I walked away from this meetings, all there was me. And again, I would close the door, and all that pain and all that fear and all that what if and if onlys would come and descend upon me. But when this man was in my life and he held me close, all of that would go away, you see. So I did the most reasonable thing is I gave up the sponsor because she made me feel guilty. But I just kept doing all this stuff them guys told me to do because I don't know what else to do. And then when I was sober about 9 months, I think it was around that time because everything just so blurry in those first few years. But I found the magic of what you were talking about. I walked into a room one day and this guy's talking and Jesus, he's crying. Can you imagine what a wimp? I mean, he's a man. Did he ever hear of Iwo Jima or John Wayne or, them courageous guys? Here's his Zapata, Pancho Villa or somebody like that. I mean, how embarrassing. After the meeting, everybody went and put their arm around him, and I went and put my arm around him too, because I didn't want you to know I was the only dog among you. And he put his head on my shoulder, and he started to cry. I don't know what happened, but all that anger, all that resentment melted away as if it had never been. And I felt love and care for this man. And I found out the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous, of one drunk talking to another, of one drunk caring for another, just because the pain in him touched the pain that I had inside of me. And I knew the secret of Alcoholics Anonymous, where sometimes I gotta have patience and tolerance for you, because there's some of you just can't stand sometimes. And I know that by looking at the gritting of your teeth at times, you gotta have patience and tolerance for me. And I don't know where else to ever go where we have patience and tolerance for each other, and we heal each other by caring and talking. That's all. That's all. Doing those things. I have to do the things today that I did then. And what it is I go to a lot of meetings, I read the book, and I work the steps to the best of my ability. And the longer I am sober, the more my ability grows. It's like in the beginning, my vision was very tunneled. And today, the vision is wider, the horizon is wider, but the narrower the road, the less I can do to compromise myself and my integrity and get away with it without having pain. You see, I know what it is to have pain and sobriety by compromising myself as much as I did in the beginning. Now, I married that young guy knowing one day he'd leave. And I always used to say, God, spare my babies. And I got involved in doing a lot of activity in Alcoholics Anonymous that is outer things. Institutional work, I would hear things like, Institutional work will keep you sober forever. Well, I'm always looking for the forever, right? And I work the steps, but now what? So I do institutional work. I do this, that, and the other. But you see, I'm still in bondage. I'm still in a lot of fear. And my higher power knew this. And what happened is that my girls started drinking and taking drugs, and they went the road I had been. And I prayed God spare my babies, and He didn't spare my babies. And one day they came home and they were so loaded. We had a big fight. I hit them and they ran off. The young man went and took me to the psycho. I had a nervous breakdown and tried to kill myself. And the young man went and took me to the psycho ward, went home, packed his clothes, and left me. And every thing that I feared came about me. And I died inside one more time. And I didn't know that I didn't have a dependence upon my higher power, that I had it still on people. And it was because of you that I still am in Alcoholics Anonymous, because you came around me. It is from the women that came around me in that time that treated me like a lady that I learned to be a lady. And it is from the men in Alcoholics Anonymous, the women that taught me how to be a woman and how to accept myself, and the men that treated me like a lady, that I've learned to be a lady. I went to one of you named Dave, and I said, "Oh, Dave, what's wrong with me that I can't seem to form a one-to-one relationship, not even with a beautiful man like that one?" And he said, "You're a beautiful, warm, loving lady, and one day you will know the reason." And I went home and got on my knees, and I said, "Okay, God, I know the reason. Bring him back." And he didn't come back. And I said, "Screw him, I'll let him do what the goddamn please. I'm tired." I don't know about the rest of you, but that means surrender, and the only language I understand. Yeah. I said, "Okay, God, I'm never going to be happy again. All you ever want me to do is work with us sick women, drunks, let them puke on me. All right, all right." I don't know about your higher power, but mine has a weird sense of humor. When I want something so bad, oh God, 10 Hail Marys, 10 Our Fathers, to go to communion and confession all the time. It doesn't come. As soon as you say, "Oh, screw it, here it comes, here it comes." Now, I'm not here to tell you that young man came back because he went on to another life. But I'll tell you what happened to me. When I got to the other side, I touched a power and a strength that was within me, that I knew nothing and nobody could ever own me again. Because after all that's said and done, they never had it to give. After all that's said and done, there's only you and me, God, anyway. They never had it to give. I also found out another secret. One of the greatest secrets was a turning point in my whole life. When I knew, when you love me and I'm not feeling good and I'm feeling the world upon me, it doesn't make me feel good when you love me. But it is when I love you, when I care and reach out for you, it feels exactly the way I thought that you loving me would feel like. Well, even today, if I'm in a bad place and my husband puts his arms around me and tells me that he loves me, it doesn't make me feel as good as when I'm loving him and giving and doing for him or anybody else. And that was what I learned then. My children came back. I don't even want them back. And they went to work, and I went to school and became self-supporting through my own contributions. And I'm one of those ladies that's had to learn to live alone to find out the difference between being alone and being lonely. I lived as a single woman almost 10 years. And, you know, I took several inventories, and one of those that I took at that time is, because I'm an alcoholic, I don't drink, and because I'm a thief, I don't steal, and because I don't know how to do relationships one day at a time, I ain't gonna get married either. I didn't know there was life after marriage. Somehow or another, they always changed after you fell in love with them. I have had to kiss 100 princes. They all became toads. After I kissed him, I don't know why this is the first toad I ever kissed that turned into a prince. I don't know why that happens that way. Hope springs eternal in the heart of a dummy, I guess. I couldn't get over that wanting to find a husband. Jesus, that takes the longest time. It seemed everybody had somebody except me. And finally, I guess I just thought I got too old and got wore out. I said, screw it, who wants one anyway? I've got to learn to like living alone. And I often wondered what would happen the next time another crisis comes into my life, and I had that opportunity 12 years last month. I want to tell you that today is my natal birthday, and I'm an old person, I'm a young person in an old container today. I'm 54 years old today. It was 12 years ago last month that my sister killed herself, and it was another measure and point in my sobriety. You see, when she died, it was the first time that death had ever touched my life that close. And it was my destiny to be the one to find her. And I could not believe what was before my eyes. That she had put the car in the garage and chose to take her life. She was heavy into pills and booze, and she didn't think that she was an alcoholic, that her case was different. She certainly let me know many, many times that she wasn't as bad as I had been. And I assured her that alcohol was absolutely no respecter of backgrounds. But that was the way that she resolved her problem. And I wanted to explode. And in those days, something came together that said God is the only giver and the only taker of life. And she chose to go, and He let her go home. I don't know how many times did I want to die. I never wanted to live. Drunk or sober, I never wanted to live. Underlying everything, I always wanted to die. You see, that had even been removed, and I didn't even know where it went. I knew that I had been spared, and that God spared my life. And newcomer, I don't come to save you, to do anything for you. If I could have done anything for anybody, it would have been my sister. I come to share my life with you because I know that it is a gift that God has given me, the ability to get up here in a podium and given the opportunity to relive my life with you in such a way that there's somebody out there that needs to hear where I come from. I truly believe that I am God's melody of life, and He sings His song through me. He sings His song through me. I feel so good to know that God can love even the likes of me, that I was the one that turned from Him, not Him from me. His hand is always light whenever it is heavy. 2 weeks after that, I became a grandma. I never knew how to be a mother. I always needed a mother. I didn't know how to be one. But I'll tell you what, I'm good as a grandma. I'm a good grandma. I can hold myself up to any grandma. Yeah, them little kids, of course, it's better in theory after they get bigger. They're not as impressed. I liked them better when they were tiny, and their little eyes would light up when Grandma'd come a-visiting. They'd think Grandma and Santa Claus were synonymous. I mean, they're so easy. You just buy them lots of candy and lots of presents, and they're yours. They came to visit me one day because they were in the service, and I ran out of milk because I'm the only one I know that gained weight on a diet. You know, and I didn't have any. I had powdered milk, and so I'm making powdered milk for them. And the oldest one's little eyes got real big and went over to her mother and says, "Mama, Mama, Grandma just made milk out of water. I tell you, I'm good." Now, I had a job in this hospital, and I'm already so happy. I'm buying my own cars, going any place I want, can get married any weekend I want, and no consequences. You know, sometimes I say, well, it's cheaper to buy my own salad and steak. I started saving my nest egg for my old age. You know, finally, when you realize that time's marching by, I got a little nest egg. I said, boy, I'm never going to get married again. This is the life. And God heard that. While I was in this hospital, I fell in love with one of the inmates. And he had the big blue eyes and gray hair. And I said, oh, God, I went to my sponsor, and she said, that's tacky. I said, oh, God, I know that's tacky. So when he left, I was relieved. He started the phone calls and flowers and letters and all this jazz. And I came and spoke once, and I think it's Ventura. They had a roundup, right? And my friend Frank over here is so tacky. He looked at me bubbling, and he said, what's with you? I said, I'm in love. Seen the program? Yes. He says, how long's he been sober? I said, well, a little over 5 minutes. And he said, Jesus Christ, Angie, give the guy a break. If there's any spiritual giants here that offends, I want you to know that it offended me. And if you think it's tacky, I thought it was tacky. However, my dear friends know that what else is new because I've always seemed to get something going there. But you see, there was something about him that was beyond anybody I'd ever been attracted with. First of all, he's a farmer. I mean, nobody falls in love with farmers. He was a cowboy. I didn't know any cowboys. And he's the only cowboy I know that's in love with cattle and doesn't like horses. And so, some of us will go to any length to be married, and I moved to Blythe, where people usually leave. As you see, I'm very, very happy in Blythe. I told you that both of us are dedicated to making me happy. He thinks I'm the greatest cook. Man, I'm always cooking because he thinks I'm wonderful. And when I bring him food, it used to be sex, now it's food, right? And I bring him, his eyes light up. He says, man, you really know how to take care of me. So I'm over there cooking. He says, God, this house is spotless. I've never seen it so clean. So I'm over there scrubbing. And he says, man, my shirts are marvelous. He's got 75 of them, color coordinated. And I'm over there ironing all the time because his shirts never... I tell you, we're both dedicated to making me happy. And I've got him convinced that a woman's place is in the mall. Huh? I tell you. He's the lure that God used to take my sobriety to Blythe. Not me, my sobriety, what you've given me, because I'm composed of a lot of you. When I got there, I'd never lived any place that they didn't know how to do it. So I'm not very quiet anymore. I used to have that beautiful smile. Now I get that smile comes this big, what the hell are you doing to Alcoholics Anonymous in Blythe? Don't you know we got traditions? Well, they weren't very impressed with me. They didn't care that I was the guest speaker. I'm just a loudmouth, know-it-all old-timer. Well, now we're doing it right in Blythe. Every so often somebody comes in from the outback and screws it up there, and we got to go through the war one more time. I'm getting so tired, I'm really learning to let them do it any goddamn way they want. I'm getting so tired, I'm finally saying, hell, I'm going to do it my way. If anybody wants what I got, they can ask me how I do it. I don't have to tell them anymore how to do it. It just gets so wore out. I only know that I have to show whatever is inside of me. And you know, one day at a time, it's been okay for whatever happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. I know that I got to work them steps, that I got to be an example for whatever good of where I come from. I have my good days and I have my bad days, and I have a lot of in-between days. But I have many a day where I can sit out there and watch my geese walk by and think I'm their mama. My geese will come up and chew on my hair and on my feet and on my toes and on my hands because they think I'm their mama. I can sit out there and watch over them alfalfa fields and into them mountains and know everything's all right. Happiness does not come out of a bottle, and it doesn't come out of somebody's wallet. You see, I thought that that's where it was. I enjoy things today, but you see, mostly what I enjoy is being like mock cattle out there with my old Levi's and old shirt and old sneakers and just sitting out there and sitting there and let the Spirit wash over my soul. I know what it is to have peace today. I completely belong to you, but I enjoy my life one day at a time. I learned that life is fragile. I tell you, I have a relationship today with my daughters that's absolutely beautiful. Both my daughters. One of them just celebrated her 6th birthday in Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah. A year ago in June, she became a nurse. She went back to school and became a nurse. And today she is, they love her as a nurse, and she is a big, beautiful Mexican mama that just got a lot of love. She lives over in Monterey. That's the mother of my grandkids. And she went into work in this hospital, and today she's not even a nurse a year, and she's already training other students. And they got her working full-time days, which is, I guess, unheard of for nursing. But I know what she is. She's got a lot of love that you've inspired in her. And she's got a lot of ability to take care of other people, because she learned how to be my mama, too, and took care of me. And we can talk and we can be friends, my daughter and I today, because we are both members of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I can be friends with my youngest daughter today that I don't know where she's at. She lives someplace in Los Angeles. And she says, Mom, you don't understand, Mom. My case is different. I can put down this needle and this bottle anytime I want, you see, because my case is different. And I can call her up because I have her phone number today, you see. For a year, I didn't know where she was. I have her phone number, and I can call her up, and I don't do it very often, but every so often I can call her up and love on her and talk little sweet talks and little baby talk over the telephone. And I don't have to tell her that she needs to be fixed, you see, because I know that sobriety is a gift. It's nothing that I've earned, and it's nothing that I've worked for. It is a gift from my higher power, you see. And it has to be that for her, too. Many a times we say, keep coming back, and if you keep coming back, it'll happen to you. Well, maybe it will, and maybe it won't, because not everybody gets to stay here. And I'm one of those that has gotten to stay here. And maybe my daughter has to die along the way, but I want her to know that I love her. And I can tell her that I will take responsibility for her disease, that whether it came from me or through me or whatever, or I reinforced it or whatever. I said, but the recovery has to be yours. You see, I can't help you there. If I could, I would. The only thing I can do for her is I can show her where the road is, and she knows where the road is if she ever has the grace of God touch her heart, as He has done the likes of you and me. I heard many things when I came here into this program, not the least of which is that we will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. And I know my sponsor has assured me that I can have a quiet heart and be sober with a broken heart, you see, and I know that. There's a core of me that it doesn't reach anymore. That whatever outer things happen, it doesn't reach that core. I took that little baby, that little granddaughter, to a conference with me once. I wore a big white blouse that covers a multitude of tortillas and beans and white blousey pants. And she looked up at me with a little shiny face and says, Grandma, you look just like the white angel. I looked at this child, and there was a spiritual experience that went between us. You see, to her, I looked just like the white angel. She's only seen what you've done with me, what you've made out of me, because I am composed of all of you, a little bit of all of you. And when I come and share with you one more time, it just adds a little bit more, you see, than my new friends that I've heard this. If you ever were a dirty woman that lived in a bedroom, it couldn't drink and couldn't be sober and couldn't live and couldn't die, and nothing I would take and pray for and yell out in agony would alleviate that madness anymore. I'll tell you that I walk in the sunlight of the Spirit daily. I don't have bad days. I have bad times, but not bad days. And when I would hear jackasses talk about that when I was new, I said, Jesus Christ, another one of them good people. I'm telling you, if you're sick, and I mean sick of heart, soul, and mind, if you're one of those that has a lot of secrets, keep coming back. Just keep on doing the things that all these jackasses say. And one day at a time, you'll stand up here just like I do and say, everything that I ever wanted in my life is here today. Thank you so much for my life.